Good afternoon and welcome to this last webinar to this series. My name is Ignatius.
My name is Robin.
And today we'll be covering some tips and tricks regarding the printer and some other functions regarding this. Like I said, this will be the last webinar for this series at the moment.
Yes.
Maybe until further notice we might do something else. But as previous webinars, please address all your questions to the chat box, as we cannot hear anything, and we'll try and address them as efficiently as we can. And if there's a bigger topic, then we'll cover this at the end.
Yes.
Okay. So without any further ado, let's have a look at the agenda. Today we will be looking at some topics inside these areas, namely Netfabb, material, the printer, the equipment that's also involved, some post-processing, and then ultimately technical support. All right.
Yeah.
So I think we can jump right
let's
into
just
it.
jump into Netfabb. So first of all, as we were telling you, in Netfabb we wanted to show you in one of the webinars the settings which you can find in the material parameters. So most important, what I need to tell you at the beginning, usually we're not touching these parameters. If there's some issue with the printing results, we got this nice webinar about printing troubleshooting. So what is going to happen when a printing result is really bad? And there's most of the basic things which need to be checked first. So only if all of these things have been executed and checked and still you got some issue, then there might be a good chance to have a closer look into some of these options. But still, before you do something in there, best is contact us. Most likely there would be a task for it already. Contact us and we're gonna have a look with you together through this one to see if there's something we might need to adjust. So, but just in case there is something we want to see, want to adjust, the three most used things we can then show you is the burn-in factor, overcure, and support width. So burn-in factor is the thing you all know already about. This is also, as a side fact, the only thing you can adjust when you're using the validated parameter in a Strawman machine, for example. So you can only adjust the burn-in factor. This is also the factor which we still allow easily to exchange without any questioning us like, oh, we need some help, because burn-in factor is just increasing or decreasing the curing time for the first layers. So getting a good adhesion to the platform, burn-in factor is doing this. If it's too hard, or if it's sticking too hard, or it's not sticking at all, you can change the burn-in factor, for example. But also with the sticking, most likely it's a parallelism issue, as in the printing troubleshooting webinar we already showed you. So another option, the overcure. So the overcure is prolonging or shortening the time for each layer for the curing time. So if you're using overcure, the print shop will take longer. You will have got more energy for each layer, so maybe the part will be stronger. It might be also a little bit bigger, so be careful. Changing also this factor might result in having different results than expected. But you should know about this option, what is going to happen there. And last but not least, the support width, it's also an option which we could show you. So for support width is just changing the support width if Netfabb knows the support is what a support is. So this is happening if you create the support directly in Netfabb with a support generator, or if you import the support as a support. So if you just import an STL file where supports and model are directly one part, Netfabb can't adjust supports with this setting. Important to know about this setting is also original. We just take this support. This is now support. Doesn't matter which diameter we've got. But if we now change the material setting to be in the support with plus 100 micron, for example. So I add 100 micron in the setting, so in the value, I will have got 200 microns, which are then adding up for the full diameter. So I'm changing 100, but it's going to be double the size later on in the diameter. So be careful changing there. Things that you know also, especially when you're reducing it, that you're not reducing the support thickness too much, because then supports will fail. Most important is there the connection area from part to the support and not to the platform.
Yeah.
Because platform is most likely, if you're using, for example, our scripts, you should not adjust anything, but also in the scripts you can see platform connection is way thicker than the connection to the part. So be careful changing things in there, just that you know what is going to happen, we would like to show you. And there's one first question, Ignatius already has seen it, so is the burn-in factor first layer or first layers? In here, it's written, settings from factory settings. So it's for each material a little bit different. It can differ. So it can go up to 10 layers, for example, but always it's depending on the material settings.
Yeah.
So 3 to 10 layers, you can say, that's the burn-in factor.
But
the overcure, the overcure is affecting all of these layers. So if you got burn-in higher and you set the overcure also higher, the first layers will be affected by both of these. So really careful, if you change too much in there, you will have a hard time removing parts from the platform.
Yeah. Just to add to what Robin is saying regarding the burn-in layers, yes, it's in the first few layers and then gradually decreases to that 100% overkill layer intensity. But like you said, it depends on the material that you use, which will determine how many of these burn-in layers you will experience, but it won't go from the burn-in percentage to the overkill in one layer. It has a gradual, roughly 5 layers to have that gradient.
Yes. And for example, it's totally different also from machine to machine.
Yep.
So capsule machine, totally different because different platform than the normal machine.
Correct.
Okay, I hope this answers your question, Tony. So I will just continue for the next one. We were already at support, so let's continue with some tips and tricks for support structures. So you can see 2 pictures in here. One is on the left side, the one where you can see a lot of supports which are a little bit bent and looking weird. So there's one setting in Netfabb in the support section, and if you're not setting this as 90-degree angle, for example, on the part, or right angle on the part, then you will have got an example like on the left side.
Yeah.
The bad thing is the force will get too high, so because force should always travel in a straight line if you're doing supports, for example, in this case.
Yep.
And if you're using bent supports, they will just not hold. They will just fail because the force is too much to bear for these supports. So our recommendation here, or our tip is, if you're doing something like this, or you're not experienced in using supports, keep them straight, so perpendicular on the platform and the build part, on the part, sorry. And of course, don't make them too long. If you're making them too long, they're also getting unstable or fragile, and they will most likely fail.
Yeah.
So this is a really important thing if you're playing around with the supports. Okay. So no questions for now. Then there's one more or 2 more topics for Netfabb, and Ignatius will just explain them to you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're looking at the positioning of models when looking specifically at the fingerprint surface finish. Now this is a topic that we have many times. How can I decrease it, or how can I remove it altogether? Now, because our pixels that we use in the DLP technology are made up of little squares, we can illustrate this as follows. So on the left hand side, we have just a basic model. I sliced it through the middle, and we're going to look at one of the front teeth. And when we look at this up close, we can see the pixel steps. But the part that is significant here is the flat surface of aligned pixels. Okay, now imagine you having layer by layer with this type of exposure. You will have a flat surface on the front end of that model. Now, to counter this or negotiate with the pixels, we would suggest that you rotate this model by 10, from 10 degrees upwards, where you can see when we look at that same tooth, there are more incremental steps on that front surface, which at the end of the day will give you a more smoother looking part to the naked eye. But please note that the pixels that are lined up now are positioned on the square surface. So it's just about knowing how the pixels are going to affect your finished product according to the positioning of it. Okay, but these images should clarify this. If it's not, please just ask.
Yeah, maybe we can just as information as well. It's just affecting always one area. So if you now, like Nisha said, if you're turning it and it's now on the top one, you will see the fingerprint if it's a flat area again.
Yes.
But the front teeth we were looking at is now smooth.
That's right.
So it's always depending on the area which you want to remove the fingerprint or reduce the fingerprint.
Yeah.
And only this area then you have to place in a certain way.
Yeah. So it's fairly straightforward. You can just rotate the part
Yeah.
on the build platform. Okay. So the next thing that we want to look at is the licensing. Now this is a topic that Andre mentioned to us to cover as well, because it is a little bit confusing.
Yes.
Because we have changed how we do or Autodesk running Netfabb has changed how they do the licensing. Okay, so how it works now is you have a license that's assigned to some login details to Autodesk. Okay, so the best way to do this is whether or not you have a license is to actually go to Autodesk website and go and check it out there. But basically how it works is if there's no license available, you need to just go to Autodesk online, go and check if there's a license. And you need to go into, I think it's product.
Yes, we will show it on the next slide. So
where it will actually display Netfabb being assigned to this account. If Netfabb is not visible here, then there is no Netfabb license assigned to this account. Okay, it's fairly straightforward in that sense. Okay, when you do get an email, so Netfabb, what they do is 3 months before the end of the license, because it's an annual license for the Netfabb, they will send out an email to the contact person. So whoever registered with Autodesk with that license will get an email from Autodesk stating that their license will expire in 3 months. And how it works is, as long as you have a maintenance contract, this license will be updated. Okay, but the best solution for you to do is to contact your distributor or whoever when you get that email, yes, to just confirm that the license is going to be renewed, because otherwise it just takes a bit longer for it to be processed.
Yes.
Because if the maintenance contract is not renewed, we will not renew the license of Netfabb either. But don't fear, you can still use Netfabb without the license. It's just so that you're aware, so that if you do get this email, you know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next slide just shows the process really. So on the left-hand side, you've logged into your account on Autodesk. There's a drop-down menu where you can go and look at all the products. And on the right-hand side is what that window actually looks like. And we can clearly see there's a Netfabb icon here with some dates.
You can make it a little bit bigger maybe if you double click.
Yes. Yeah,
not that much.
But it's about this little icon for the Netfabb and also the versions that it's valid for. So all this means, so there's no product key, like I said. There's no product key.
Yeah, so this one.
Yeah, it just says sign in. Okay, so what this means is when you open Netfabb, you just go and sign into Netfabb. And then if you do have a license for this login details, then it will associate it and it will link in Netfabb on its own. Okay. But if anything of this is not clear, then please don't hesitate to contact us for further clarification.
Okay, so then let's just continue real quick with the material.
Yep. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so for the materials, we've already mentioned this with the troubleshooting.
Yes.
But it's important to reiterate this, and we have two images here of two different materials, and you can see that they don't look well mixed. So it's about the consistency that you have inside the liquid resin prior to printing. We can see that there's lighter chemicals that are at the top of the mixture, and then heavier chemicals at the bottom. And the thing to note here is different materials have different combinations of these chemicals. Okay, whether they are technical resins or biocompatible, it's very important that they are mixed, because if they're not mixed, you could end up with parts. For example, here you've got a darker finish on the bottom, which would be the first initial layers, which would be the heavy color pigments that would be at the bottom of the reservoir, and then as it progresses the print job, it changes color. Okay, now in this instance there was a print job that worked, so to speak, but in certain other instances you might not even be able to print at all, because if you start printing like this without mixing it, you are actually pulling out all the curing material out of that solution, and at the end you're just left with some liquid that does not respond to the UV light. Okay. All right, so let's just continue. I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's just have a look at the printer real quick. Are there really some tips and tricks left? So we mentioned it in one of the webinars, what to do when there's a software issue. So it might happen that you got a software issue, but what we really would love to tell you all the time is it's a computer inside. And most likely computers not all the time react in a way we understand. So the first tip we can really give you, if there's some issue with the printer, if there's some software issue, you might directly see error, call rapidshape or distributor, do a code reboot. So why we want to do a code reboot is to get rid of all the residual power which is maybe in some parts of the printer. So code reboot means shut down the printer via the software, switch off the main switch on the back, and then remove the power plug. Now you can wait for 1 minute, or you can just get one coffee, for example, and come back and then connect the plug and switch on the printer again. In this way we just really have got a proper code reboot and can see if the printer is then working fine again. Same thing is really sometimes happening also to your PC. I think you all know it, that sometimes the proper restart is just repairing stuff.
Inevitable.
Yes. So once you've done this and there's still the issue appearing, of course, directly get in contact with us. No problem, we will try to solve it as soon as possible. But if you just do the code reboot in the beginning and it's working, the customer can continue working. And this is, I think, the best thing you can do. Do a code reboot. If the customer can work again, we still can have a look at log files and so on afterwards, but the customer's work is not interrupted. And you can still contact us afterwards. We will have a look and see if we can figure out what was going on. But customer is in this case priority number one. So do a code reboot and maybe all the things are already solved. And the other important tip, well, we call it tip, but it's also maintenance, is the build platform parallelism. This is what we experience a lot of times, that the build platform parallelism is just causing much issues. The thing is, build platform or setting the build platform parallel is not that complicated. But if customers are just doing it once a month because it's not needed to be done, or they drop the platform and haven't done it before, they might struggle a lot. And so it's really important. Build platform parallelism is one of the big topics if prints or print jobs are failing partially. So they're just not sticking, or one part is just not attaching properly to the platform. Please check the build platform parallelism. There's also a video online for this. So we try to give you a lot of help also, which you can then, for example, show the customer that there is some more information about how to set up a build platform properly. And also you can see there's a small tip below the build platform topic. It's loosen the screws and tighten them and the platform is level. So what we want to tell you with this is sometimes you're stuck with the platform parallelism because you've done so much things and each corner is so weirdly adjusted and you won't find a proper way to do this. So it might be the easiest way to loosen the screws, so especially the small ones, to put them completely, or not completely out of the platform, but so far back that you can put the platform directly in contact with the top piece of the platform. So it's leveled with the platform completely inside. And then you start again the process from zero to level the platform. So you got a nice start, which is having a straight platform, and then you just adjust it to the printer itself in a slight way. So
Because it is quite tricky. I mean, it's about that process that you have to know what to check for, because when you tighten one corner, it does have an effect on the other corners. And at some point, if you maybe turn too much and you kind of go down the rabbit hole too far, you end up with a warped plate, and then it's very confusing to go back steps. So just resetting it in this sense would make the process a little bit easier, I believe.
Yes. Okay, so that was already all about the printer. If you've got some question about some printer topics, just let us know. We still have got time today also to talk about these. So next topic would then be the equipment. Equipment, for example, we're talking about the reservoir cleaning. Yes, there might be a chance that you will have got a failed job. Could be a wrong design, could be just that the printer is failing. Doesn't matter, but you got some failed job, and the next thing you have to do is clean the reservoir. Of course, you got also some residues sometimes in the reservoir or directly on the Teflon foil, and it's hard to remove them piece by piece. And especially the Teflon foil might be attacked if you just grab it with your fingers or with some metal tool and so on. To make these things easier, you can use the clean reservoir function. I think lots of you already know it. Clean reservoir is just putting the light on for the full area, which means you will get a fully cured area. Some call it lasagna sheet, and this one is then easier, way easier to remove with the rubber spatula, of course. On some of these corners you can find. Then all the parts which were in there are cured in this big sheet, and the big sheet can easily be removed without being broken or without breaking it. So also you then reduce the damage to the Teflon layer. I think you also got a tip in the first webinar regarding cleaning of the reservoir.
So the idea behind it is, if you are swapping materials from one reservoir and you need to make it clean so that you can use a different material, using the clean reservoir function, so that when you're actually cleaning all the material, the residual material out of that reservoir, you have no threat of damaging your print area, which is exposed during that show white or the clean reservoir function. You can leave that sheet in there whilst you clean out as much of the liquid resin as possible, and then right at the end you can peel this off without knowing or feeling like you've damaged the Teflon layer in the crucial build area. Now this is applicable on the 30s and the 40s or the 20s. It's across
universal. Okay, so then the next thing would be the build platform removal tool. So you can still remove a build platform with a tool. Why is this a tip? Yes, I think it's not used that much right now in the field, but in order to avoid dripping outside of the reservoir, you can use this tool. Some customers, or most of customers I've seen, they're using some tissues, so lots of tissues, putting them underneath the platform and then removing the platform out of the printer, placing it somewhere. It's quite handy for us if you use just a platform removal tool, so you will avoid dripping, but you don't have to waste some papers just to transport it, and it's really safe from dripping because we got the big metal sheet underneath the platform itself. So, there's one question regarding the build platform parallelism, I think. Could you touch on adjusting the 2 set screws behind the platform when it's needed? The 2 set screws.
In the back of the platform.
Behind the platform. So now it's interesting. Dave, can you please
elaborate a little bit?
In the printer. So we got a printer here.
Yes.
Let's have a look. In the printer, 2 screws. So you're not talking about the platform itself, is that correct? Not the platform, okay. So, but in...
Just the 2 set screws. So the platform holder on the load cell.
Okay, so I think he's talking about these screws then on the load cell directly.
Yes.
Okay, so the load cell screws mainly...
Not the back ones. just
Yeah, the front ones.
yeah, these ones. Yeah.
But I think, they don't need to be adjusted usually at all, because they are fixed
Yeah.
when delivered. Of course, if you exchange the load cell, for example, because there's some damage, then you will have to loosen them. But usually, if you adjust a build platform parallelism, there's no need in some order to touch these screws.
The only effect you will have by loosening the build platform holder screws would be to rotate the build platform. So it doesn't have a lift or an angle to it. It's just about rotation so that the build platform is parallel to the print area. So that when you're printing, it comes flush onto the side, or not on the edge of the build platform, but in line with the build platform edge. But if you want to adjust this, we won't recommend this because you will maybe print it at angles. So instead of having it square on here, it might come out at an angle. Not that that will be affected by the light engine. It is purely how it's being placed on your build platform. Okay.
Okay.
The Z-axis limit screws.
So yes, so you're talking about the limit screws. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Sean. Now you're also telling us. Okay.
Great.
So
This is a different topic.
yes, a different topic. Good that we explained also the other one.
Yes.
About the limit switches. So this is set up also previously at rapidshape.
Mm-hmm.
So usually there's no adjustment needed. Now, of course, if you're, for example, adjusting the platform a lot, you can see, maybe I can show it to you. There's now a gap already in between. So this gap can differ from a few millimeters already.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we set the Z-axis limit switches pretty close to be printed with everything. But if, for example, the platform is adjusted in a way different way than it was in the original state, it might be possible that this is touching the limit switcher bottom one.
Yeah, so this can also happen during shipping.
Yes,
of
of course.
printers, which do happen because of vibrations that are involved. So during an installation, ideally, what should be done is the limit switcher should be checked in regards to the build platform being inserted with the calibration plate inside,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. But this is something that you can adjust if you're familiar with it. Otherwise, we do have actually I think, but we can
But we can
assist
yes.
for this process. It is fairly straightforward. There's a screw, there's a nut that secures the screw. To adjust this, you need to loosen the nut, tighten the screw, or loosen the screw if you need to activate the switch sooner or later, depending on the orientation of that, and then tightening the nut that would secure the screw again.
Yeah, you just have to be careful, because if you're adjusting it too much, the platform won't stop if there's some issue with the machine,
Yeah.
because the limit switch is really there for safety reason. If you forget, for example, to put in a platform, but you adjusted the screw now too much, the load cell is not measuring on the back the force, it's measuring on the front. But the back side will collide with the reservoir, for example.
Yeah.
So adjusting something there, just get in contact with us. We will assist you
Yeah.
to have a right amount of the adjustment.
Yeah.
And I think this is also a topic, then again, back to the shipping. Have a look for the shock watches.
Yeah, just
Tell your customer if you ship it or anything, have a look for the shock and tilt watches on the package.
yeah.
Because this is how we can avoid heavy shipping or...
Yes, having said that though,
Yeah.
I have to though say that it's not just a knock or a serious shock. It can be low vibration
Yes,
that
of
will
course,
cause
yeah.
this. So it might not be apparent, but like Robin said, the bottom limit switch is at a length such that if the build platform is not inserted, that it doesn't crash into the reservoir. Okay, and if you crash the the load cell into the reservoir, you are creating less of a moment because of that distance at which the contact is being made, and then ultimately you can A, break the reservoir, B, damage your load cell, or C, even worse, break the liquid of the reservoir into
Yes.
your light engine cavity, which is an ultimate
Bad.
jackpot.
Okay, so Then let's just continue with the slides. So we got also as a last tip for the build platform, how to remove overcured parts. For example, you were adjusting the burn-in factor, or you were playing around with the overcure.
Or you have a new build platform.
For example, yes. Then it could happen that the part is just sticking really, really hard on the build platform. So in order to remove this properly, of course, we have got the spatula. You put the spatula underneath it. Maybe you will need a hammer to remove it, but it still is not working, or you just are scared of breaking it. There's one tip we've seen also at a customer place. They're using a cable cutter to pinch a corner of the part. So if you just have a look at this model now, they're just placing the cable cutter directly at the corner, really close to or directly on the platform, and then they're just pinching this corner, which will then lead to the model to snap up and get rid or disconnect from the platform.
Yeah.
Of course, if your part is very delicate, it can happen that it's just breaking.
Yeah.
Because also if a part is curing too much, it might get brittle. So this is just a tip. If you have issues with this, for example, use a cable cutter.
Yeah.
Also, after you experience something like this, so overcure parts or the parts are sticking too much, you might just change the the burn-in factor.
Yes.
The burn-in factor in order to reduce the stickiness or the adhesion for the next print job, so you won't get into the same situation again.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's continue with the post-processing, because no questions for now, so we can just jump right into it.
Okay. So with the post-processing, we find that customers generally ask, how do you conserve material? Because we understand that material is very expensive. So there are two ways to do this, both being a drip dry technique. When we look at the part that had just finished printing, it's coming out of the resin, so there's lots of liquid resin still on this part. Now, if you leave the model in the printer after it's printed for about 10 minutes roughly, all the excess resin should drain off of that. Now, this is dependent on the design of these models. We understand that sometimes you have models that are hollow, which actually hold some liquid resin internally. Now, for this, we would suggest that you remove these models and place them in a like a sieve with a funnel that drip dries them or drains the excess material into a material container. Noted that this needs to be placed in a dark area to prevent excess liquid curing, which in the meantime you can go and prepare the next job. You can put it in the machine, you can start it, and then go back to the previously printed job, at which point the majority of the liquid resin should have drained away from it. Okay, this is one way of doing it, because then it also takes less maintenance in the post-process, because less ISO exchange for the washing and so on and so forth. Okay, then we also have to look at the support structures. Now, this again comes down to the design. If you have a very delicate structure, then you might have different results, because if you are post-processing supports that are adhered to something, but the supports are so nimble that they will just break off during the washing cycle. It is important to note, depending on what type of washing cycle you use, will depend on whether or not you will remove these supports prior or after. Please note also that if you do have supports, there's lots of liquid resin that are caught in between these members, which will also then contaminate your cleaning process a lot faster. So it's just to be mindful of that. Always use a base grid when you're using supports. So if it's a nimble part, probably remove the supports prior to washing. If it's a strong part, then you can probably leave it on there. But it's just important to note which post-process for the washing you are using and how it will affect your printed model during that wash cycle.
Yes. And so these are just tips and tricks.
Yes.
There's no recommendation for these ones.
That's
it's
correct.
just out of experience. Some customers doing it like this, other ones like this. We just want to give you the information what is possible.
We don't want to step on anybody's toes, essentially.
Okay, So, then the next one, I think, is one which we got also this morning, and it's really crucial.
Yeah, and so this is basically a follow-up, or it's adding to the Netfabb licensing, because, so this crucial document, we call that handover protocol. Okay, crucial. We
really
can say that many times, but the gravity of it is probably not felt across like we feel it.
Yes.
It is very important because with this document, after the installation, fill it in, send it to us. So it will be to serviceadmin@rapidshape.de. This document allows us to register the machine in conjunction with the user contact details, and then ultimately getting the Netfabb license at the end of the day. Okay, very important, because without this, the customers will be left without a Netfabb license. Okay, that's basically what it comes down to. But it also helps us to better determine how we can assist the customer on the other side. Okay, so if they contact us regarding information or questions or assistance or problems, then we know exactly who we're talking to, because we can go and back reference that. Okay.
Yeah. So the main information in there, the email address, is then used for our information, and as you said, but really important also for Autodesk. So if there's a licensing issue, the email address on this handover report is the email address for the licensing of Netfabb.
That's right.
So in case you find no license in the Autodesk account of the customer, compare it with the handover report. If there's another email address on the handover report, there can't be a license in his own account, because it's directly licensed on this email address then.
Okay. And how it works is, so like we said, we receive the handover protocol, we then contact Autodesk regarding the contact information of the end user. Autodesk then supplies a email to this main user, so to speak, with an email asking that user to register with Autodesk. Now sometimes this email gets lost in the spam or the junk mail, something like this. Not always, but it's important, because once this email is sent out, that user then has 3 weeks to go and register with their given contact email. If they do not do this, Autodesk will generate a random email and assign it to that license. Then after 4 weeks, maybe after the email was sent out, the user finds the email and then tries to register, they won't be able to register. And then they need to contact us. We contact Autodesk. Autodesk reassigns the original email, and then they can register again. So it's just very important that the end user knows that they need to have an eye out for Autodesk or an email from Autodesk regarding the registering. Because once they've registered, then it's a fairly smooth process. It's just important that they are aware of this, okay? Because, and then you'll have to register with Autodesk, and then you get the license through that. Okay. So then let's continue with one last tip. The tip is really mainly focused then on us. So contacting the technical support. So of course you need to contact the technical support from time to time. But then we separate now the email we need to do, or the information in the email, in 2 topics. So the general information and the problem information. Because for us it's really important to get as much information as possible. So you are most likely in contact with the customer, or you already know about the issue a lot. So what we need to know is general information, is the machine class and the machine serial number. Best thing would also be to get the contact of the installation. So who was the guy, or who was the technician, for example, who's doing the installation there, because he might know most about the area there and about the people we have to contact, which is the next point, the contact information of the end customer, so of the user. So these are the information we need just to have the general information, to get contact, to get information, maybe additional one of them. The second one, also really important, is the problem information. Because if we just receive an email, I got an issue, solve it,
it's okay, we can try our best, but maybe there's some time lost because you already did a lot of things which are totally correct that you've done them, but we don't know about them, so we're going to do the same thing over and over again with the customer, and there's a lot of time which is just wasted then. So what we need to know, of course, is the problem topic. So regarding what are you contacting us, and really nice would be having problem images. So send us images as much as you have got from the problem, especially when a print job fails, as we showed you in the printing troubleshooting webinar. Pictures are saying more than words. So this is really crucial. Send us also pictures, and then as I said, in order to not waste any time of the customer, please let us also know what has been already tested to resolve the issue. So just a short summary: I did parallelism check, I did this. So we are sure this is a thing we don't need to test anymore and can go straight forward to more further problem solution.
Correct.
So this is really then helping us and also you to get a really fast solution for the customer.
Correct.
Okay, so Sean is now asking one more question, but I think
he's asking about the handover protocol and the Netfabb license, the time delay between the submitting of the handover protocol and receiving that license. Roughly, it should be within 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, something like this.
And so I don't know exactly how Simona does this, but she makes contact with Autodesk on a daily basis whenever she receives handover protocols, and then it's in Autodesk's hand, basically.
So, but that's our experience. 30 days of trial as soon as you do the installation, and directly after the installation forward this handover protocol to us. This 30 days trial of Netfabb, when you start installing it, should be totally fine, and in this time you will receive the email from Autodesk.
And it's there's no discrepancies where in the world you are located. This is worldwide.
Exactly.
So there's no priorities on this matter.
Okay. And this is now the correct transition into the big topic, as usual in the end, the Q&A. So if you've got any questions in this webinar, it doesn't even matter what topic these questions are. So just let us know if there's something you are interested in. We still got a little bit time left to answer your questions. And just bring it to us.
So whilst you think about questions, like we said at the start, this will be the last webinar for this series.
Antonio is asking now when we will see you next.
That's very kind. I hope that's nice. So this will be the last of this series until further notice. If this is something that picks up more pace or more traction, then we will probably have another series. But I think because we covered such a vast quantity of information and topics, that it might not be as quickly as we have started this one just then. So we'll have to wait and see if there's a bigger push from our customers and Straumann and so on and so forth. Then I think
let's see.
Then we have to play it by ear. But it has been a pleasure.
Yes, and there's a good thing, Antonio. You can just rewatch all the webinars over and over again in case you're just missing us.
We actually have a non-printer related question. Cool. Is where we get our black shirts from.
Well, okay, I think we're not allowed. Yes, well, I think we're not allowed to name the brand in here because we're not making advertisement.
Of course.
So we didn't even buy it. We got them from.
But you can contact our marketing department. They will probably be happy to assist you further regarding this topic.
Yeah, Sean, maybe you should also contact them to ask if you get also these shirts. Oh, thank you, Antonio.
That's very kind.
So, right. before we now getting really red in our face, and we would like to say again, thank you. Let's make a bigger picture of us, so in case you miss us, you can have a nice last impression.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much for going with us through this whole series of the webinars.
Thank you.
It was really cool for me, and I think for you and Robert also as well, to have all this interaction with you, all your questions, and we really love to do this and giving out all the information we can in order to make your lives easier in supporting the printers. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, and stay safe and take care.
And stay three-dimensional. Bye-bye.
Bye.